Welcome everyone, both live and on the recording. Thank you so much for joining today's session. My name is Nicola Joyce. I'm the Employer Engagement Manager aligned to the Faculty of Business and Law within the Careers and Employability Service at the Open University. We are really excited to be joined today by Keith Mitchelhill. Keith is an early talent advisor from the law firm Womble Bond Dickinson. Keith will provide an insight into the skills that are valued and stand out when applying to a law firm. Keith will also chat about leveraging life and work experience and will share his tips about finding work experience. Please do take this opportunity to ask Keith any questions you have. He is here today to support you. Please do post your questions in the Q&A box and we will endeavour to ask Keith as many of your questions as possible towards the end of this session. So I'll now hand over to Keith.
That's wonderful. Thank you ever so much. So what I'll just do quickly is share my slides. We'll get that ready. And hopefully everyone can see that. So just as a very quick introduction, yes, my name is Keith Mitchelhill, and I'm an early talent advisor at Womble Bond Dickinson. I've been here for just coming up to 8 years, and I'm very fortunate that a big part of my role is the outreach. Obviously, what I cover internally is supporting the application processes, but a big focus is the outreach and, most importantly, just trying to empower people into the industry. So I'm very friendly and welcome to answer any questions that you may have. There will be time at the end to run through those. So please do not hesitate to come forward. The reason I'm kind of in this role is because when I was younger, I had very little support in terms of kind of careers and guidance. My education experience just very much felt like a conveyor belt. You pass your GCSEs to get into college, get your A-levels to get into university. There was no kind of wider understanding of where to actually go, how, what could I potentially do? So for me, a big part of my passion is trying to essentially be the person that I needed when I was younger. And so I hope to be that person for you. And the reason I mention that is because one of the key things when you are engaging with employers, they want to understand your driver for what you're doing. So it's always worth being mindful of what has led you down this path, what has led you to these decisions. Something that I always like to ask people is, what is the spark that got you interested in law? And from that, we hear so many different kind of experiences, and there is no right or wrong. For some people, it's kind of the money, the prestige of working in law. For others, it's a sense of being part of something. They're really proud of their communities, and they want to be able to kind of play a part in that. And there's no greater way to kind of support that than being involved with law. So hopefully that gives you some insight into myself, and as I say, really happy to answer any questions you may have at the end. So today, what we were looking at is the value of law degree. What do employers look for? Extracurricular activities, employability skills, leveraging work and life experience, what to do if you haven't got any experience yet, some real world insights, and then just a quick look at how to find some work experience. So just before I begin, one of the things that I really want to stress is that if you're not understanding something, let me know. It's on me to be able to translate to you the information. And if I'm not doing that correctly and not understanding, that's on me. So please do not hesitate if you have any questions about what I'm talking about or want me to kind of cover anything again. I'm very happy to do so. So first off, let's look at the value of a law degree. Now, you're all aware kind of, law degrees are tough, and that in itself is quite a positive thing, because if you can complete a law degree, then already employers know that actually, there's a lot of drive and determination there to be able to understand, very complicated materials. Law is an ever-changing environment, and it's kind of a blend of understanding history in terms of, sort of how we got to this point in how laws are created and their implementation, and then kind of managing kind of real world events and understanding how these may apply in a practical sense. So there's so many skills that can come from studying a law degree, and it can open up so many career paths beyond just legal firms. And that's, I think, something that's really key, because I'm sure you're all aware there is a lot of competition for training contracts. Just to kind of put that into context, we offer around sort of 20-25 training contracts. This year we had over 2,800 applications. So that does sound quite overwhelming. But most importantly, you've got to be in it to win it. So please always back yourself. But to also know that it's not the end of the world if you're not successful. There's lots of other sort of paths that you can go down. And to kind of give some context to that, my partner, she studied a law degree. She was really keen to get into the legal environment. Unfortunately, she had some bad advice. So basically, one of her lecturers basically told her that, unless she comes from a very wealthy background, then she doesn't stand a chance. And that absolutely knocked her confidence and just put up a brick wall, which is really sad. And so again, that's something that I want to kind of help open up to people. But that didn't stop her. She ended up working for a company called the DPS, Deposit Protection Scheme. And within that, she was an adjudicator. You have to have a law degree to be an adjudicator, as what they do is they sit between the tenant and a landlord. So if anyone has rented, you'll know that you would have paid a deposit. That deposit legally has to be held within a registered provider. So the DPS Deposit Protection Scheme was a wonderful kind of career for her that absolutely would not have been possible if it wasn't for her law degree. And since then, she's now gone on. She is now the head of home ownership for a major housing association. And again, it's the law degree that has helped her kind of get to that point, because it's her understanding of contracts, understanding how housing law impacts the individuals, that has allowed her to really thrive and grow to the position that she is in. So I guess what I'm really trying to get at is the law degree is incredibly prestigious. Lots of employers really do recognize the benefits of it. And if you are finding that you're not getting where you want to in terms of kind of training contracts and entering the legal industry directly, do not let that sort of prevent you from still utilizing the value of your law degree. So just be mindful there. And it's one of those things where it's not until you start to kind of really look at these niche type of roles you realize the value and opportunities that can come from a law degree. But I think some of the really key things that come across, and kind of we touched upon those, is the critical thinking and analysis. You are studying legal cases, you are comparing legal arguments, you're trying to understand and unpick problems. That is what we do. Well, I say the royal we. I'm not legally qualified myself, but as a law firm, that is what we do. Clients come to us when there is a problem. They're never going to come to us when everything's fine. There's a problem that needs to be untangled, it needs to be unpicked. So you can see these are really kind of the core skills that are involved with those kind of relationships. So critical thinking, the research. First we need to understand the company, so being able to research them. What are their aims, their ambitions? What are their experiences been so far that we can inform to help them get over the line to achieve their goals? And also understanding the laws that may impact them, and that's the really key thing, is what could potentially impact them now or impact them in the future. So that research side of things is incredibly important, because of course if you make a mistake, we're potentially encouraging our clients to do something that could be considered illegal, and that is never a position that we want to be in. Then you've got the communication skills. Now, whether this is written or verbal, you are taking incredibly complicated information, very complex, and you're then having to explain that, disseminate that to audiences that actually don't have that legal mindset. And something that I always try and keep in the back of my head is that if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't understand it. And I appreciate that's quite a simplification, but what I'm trying to get at is that as lawyers, it is their job to convey very technical information to people who have no understanding of law at all. Our clients are experts in their sectors, they're not experts in law. That's why they've come to us. So the communication through sort of the written or verbal aspects are so important and able to kind of translate and get that information across. Most importantly, for clarity, as mentioned before, if we kind of speak too vaguely or at too sort of a detailed technical level for our clients to understand, they may walk away and do something untoward. feeling confident that we've told them to do this. We're actually, we're really mindful that this is not what they want to do. And then, of course, the time management and organization. So there's a lot of client deadlines. And of course, clients are, they can be quite pushy. That's their prerogative. They're obviously paying a lot of money for our legal service and information. They have a lot of their internal deadlines to meet. So with that, we are under pressure to kind of hit those deadlines as well. So it's getting that balance right, managing expectations, and ultimately being able to manage your own workload in a way that will not prevent you from being able to complete and fulfill the work requirements as necessary. So they're just some core skills that can really come out that you are absolutely developing now. And I think the really key thing is just to be really mindful of what it is that you're doing. And with that, it can be incredibly empowering because we are all the product of our decisions that we've made throughout our lifetimes, through our careers. So understanding how we are making decisions, how we are utilizing our skill sets is so empowering, because then you can suddenly realize, actually, I'm bringing a lot to what I'm doing, and that will hopefully give you the confidence to continue stepping forward and to reach out to employers and really sort of sell yourself as best you can. The reason that's so important is you're going to hear me using a lot of kind of phrases and analogies, so apologies if I sort of overburden you with it. But one of the things that I've heard said, and I think is so valuable, is that if you don't tell people who you are, they will fill in the gaps for you. And so that's why it's so important to have that self-awareness, to be able to say, this is who I am, this is what I have to offer. And then by filling in all those gaps, an employer can look at you and see, this is fantastic, this is exactly what we're looking for. And then positive conversations start to flow from there. So in conjunction with kind of the law degree, you're demonstrating your academic side of things. It's then incredibly important to be able to kind of bring in your sort of real world experience and how you've utilized that. And this is where your extracurricular activities can really come forward. Firstly, they're kind of demonstrating that you are able to kind of, it sounds really weird, but exist in real life situations. And what I mean by that is you are having conversations with people, you are developing your skill sets in real sort of circumstances and scenarios. You're understanding all the factors that might come into play on a day-to-day basis. And this is all the information that is needed to allow anyone to kind of be successful in any type of role. And we'll look a bit later on about kind of where you can kind of draw these experiences from. But most importantly, it's really keen to kind of just push yourself out there, keep challenging yourself. And it gives you, a platter of information to be able to talk about, to put yourself forward when you are in an interview, when you are making applications. And that in itself is so valuable. And the difference between walking into an interview and feeling like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say, compared to actually I've got this whole bank of examples and experiences that I've got that I'm very comfortable kind of drawing upon, means you can go in and kind of tackle any situation. And I think one of the really key things is that employers don't expect you to know everything, but they want to see how you can navigate your way to that knowledge, to success. So this is where the real sort of wild skills come in and kind of help sort of bring you forward. Excuse me. And I think a key thing as well is the quality over quantity. Now, we receive applications from people who there might be kind of 7, 8, 9 sort of internships or work placement schemes and things like this, but they can only sort of summarize in a couple of lines what it is that they've been doing. Now, to me, that's a bit concerning, because if you've been on a 2-week internship or a 2-week work placement and all you can talk about is, you supported a client matter, you spoke with the legal teams to gain your knowledge, it doesn't actually tell us much about yourself. It just tells us that this is what the program was supposed to be. And that is selling yourself short, because I'm sure if you have had any of those kind of experiences, you'd be using your initiative to kind of really get involved, get stuck in, and become as knowledgeable as possible. So that's why the quality over quantity is so valuable. And again, to kind of give some real life context to that, I remember we had an application from someone, and they're only they're studying university. Their only sort of extracurricular activities they're involved with was being the captain of a football team. But the thing is, ultimately, the situation you've been in is irrelevant. It's what you've done. And the way they spoke about their role as the team captain was just incredibly fascinating, really, to be completely honest. And what they did was they spoke about kind of the importance of leadership that was gained, teamwork, and they used an example of basically they themselves were in a bit of a rut. There was a few things going on in their personal life, and they realized they just weren't performing on the pitch as they would have liked. This was quite embarrassing because they were the team captain. They're supposed to be the leader. They're supposed to be kind of sort of championing everyone and being the best on the pitch. And so he spoke about how he had to essentially really humble himself, and he had to bench himself and put another team member in his place. And he thought that would be incredibly demoralizing. He thought the team would look at him as a failure. But actually what happened was the opposite. They rallied around him. They respected the fact that he was putting the team first. And from that, the team started to win more games. He started to build his confidence back in again, and he was able to then kind of put himself back on the pitch. But the real takeaway from this, and this is kind of the cherry on the top of the answers that we'll kind of look at a bit later in terms of how to deliver your responses. But he said what this taught him was that actually leadership is not always leading from the front. Sometimes it's about leading from the back and pushing everyone forward, allowing them to be their best, to be a sum greater than their parts. What a wonderful kind of explanation of his experience and what he's able to kind of draw out of that. And with that, he was able to kind of get quite far through the process. And this was a while ago, so I apologize, I can't remember if he was successful or not, but certainly that mindset and that delivery allowed him to really sort of get himself across. So really do be mindful of that, and that's why it's so important to have that self-awareness about your skill sets and experiences. It's also an opportunity to talk about skills gained. So in that example, absolutely, he demonstrated the skills gained, was able to kind of give reflective questions on his growth and development. And in doing so, what I guess this is kind of the hidden aspect that he probably didn't realize he was getting across, but bringing forward his initiative, his selflessness, all these kind of softer skills that maybe he wasn't quite aware that he was demonstrating, but we were able to kind of draw upon from his actions. And what that tells us is that actually this is someone who can think for themselves. They can put the team before them, and in doing so, they can be trusted to make the right decisions. And such a simple thing builds so much trust and confidence from the interviewers. It's always a positive experience. So that's why it's so important to kind of really bring these things through. You can actually then demonstrate the skills that you have developed. We see a lot of applications where people will kind of put in their profile, I'm hardworking, I've got good organizational skills, and I'm a committed team member. The problem is, until you kind of give examples that demonstrate that, it can kind of fall a bit flat. And that's not to kind of sort of be insulting or anything, but we need to see, or at least hear about these skills in action. Otherwise, you could write anything. And the point is that you have to be able to kind of get that buy-in and the trust. And to put that into kind of a client situation, there's no point us walking into a client meeting and just saying, oh, I've done this a million times, it'll be fine, just leave it with us. That's not going to get the trust and the confidence from the client. This could be sort of a multi-million-pound project. They want to know the details. What is going to happen? What are you going to do for us to actually ensure that we can kind of build success? So that person just coming in just saying, I've done this loads of times, just trust me, it'll be fine, is kind of the equivalent of just writing, I'm a hard worker, I'm got my organizational skills, I'm a committed team member, things like that. Until you can provide the evidence that supports that, it can kind of fall a bit flat. So again, that's why it's so important to be able to kind of bring that forward. And of course, with that, it's articulating those learning outcomes. So, with that example I gave earlier of the sort of the football captain, by talking to us about the leadership skills that he developed, he was able to articulate the learning experience. And so that is so valuable. So really try and be reflective. And one of the things I kind of suggest is, create a mind map of all of your experiences on a piece of paper, and with that you can then kind of talk about, well, okay, if you're coming from a second career, if you have a client focus, then talk about your customer engagement, that's listening skills, influencing skills, negotiation skills, communication skills. If you are involved with kind of stock checks or anything like that, that's your inventory and organization skills, that's time management. So you can really start to kind of piece together your experiences and bring yourself to life. And again, that should hopefully, when you look at that mind map, and that's, once that's kind of completed, you should feel really empowered as to what you have to offer. And once you feel confident in what you have to offer, the interviewers, the employers would also feel confident in what you have to offer. And I kind of think of it as kind of a positive perpetual spiral. The more you kind of invest in understanding yourself, the more that you can really push yourself forward and sell yourself in a confident way. So I hope that gives some kind of insight into the importance and why we look for them. It's not just about being able to list, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. It's all about what you've done rather than, it's how you've done it rather than what you've done. And again, just to kind of look at kind of what do employers look for. Of course, these are kind of the takeaways that we're trying to look for in your responses. Are you motivated? Are you able to demonstrate initiative? Are you willing to learn? Can you be responsible and reliable? Do you have experience working with others? I'm sure we've all been part of groups where actually maybe we haven't quite necessarily agreed with what other people are doing, or anything like that. So being mindful of how we engage with others is so valuable, because you will be working in teams, you will be working with a variety of people. So having that experience, being able to talk about it, can be so valuable. And then, as mentioned, short experiences can make a huge difference when applying for jobs, apprenticeships, or university. Obviously, that's a bit of a kind of catch-all comment, but whatever you're learning is really beneficial and powerful. So please do be really mindful of that. So I wanted to kind of take a look at some of the skills we look for. And apologies, this wasn't all supposed to show up at once. So I was hoping to kind of come and invite you to kind of talk through some of the kind of skill sets, but we've got a bit where we can kind of get your engagement very shortly. But these are just some of the common things that we look for. It's really nice and straightforward. There's nothing that you're doing that it doesn't get covered by these. These are all skills that we use in our everyday lives, education, relationships with friends and family, even your own hobbies. But as mentioned, the true talent comes from being self-aware of when and how you're using these to achieve success in anything that you do. These skills allow us to be the best that we can be in our work environment, and the better we are, the better we can be for our clients. So just very quickly, planning, being able to organize your time and tasks so you can get things done well. Teamwork, working well with others, sharing ideas, listening, helping each other. Finding smart or unique ways to fix challenges or answer tricky questions, that's problem solving. Communication, speaking and sharing ideas clearly whilst listening carefully so that everyone understands and works well together. One of the things that you'll really see in a legal environment is we obviously have a range of clients that we work with. Some might be in-house lawyers, in which case, if I were to overhear that conversation, I probably would understand most of it. A lot of it will just go over my head because they'll be using jargon and technical information that I just don't understand or have experience with. So, it's about understanding your audience and being able to deliver to them. So, it's really important to be mindful of that. And of course, the difference then is if we're speaking to sort of a client that has no legal experience whatsoever, then it will be very much toned down to be their level. Now, the key thing is it's important for us to bridge that gap. We can't expect to just chuck all this information at our clients and expect them to know it. It's our job to kind of bridge that gap in knowledge, and to ensure that they're comfortable and understand things. So yeah, these are the things to kind of be mindful of. Again, leadership, helping guide and support others to work together and succeed. Computer literacy, being comfortable using a range of standard software, Word, Excel, Outlook. I guess the key thing here as well is just being open to sort of the different systems that might be in use, but as long as you can demonstrate some competency around kind of the standard sort of software suites, you'll be absolutely fine. Adaptability, being flexible, ready to change when things don't go as planned. Commitment to the business, showing you care about your work by being reliable, doing your best and helping the team succeed. And just to kind of put this on, you might be thinking, how am I supposed to demonstrate commitment to a business that I'm not part of? Well, with that, what we kind of look for there is just that you've done some research on us. That's it. Your application isn't made on a whim. You've put some thought and effort into your response, or your application, your interest in us, and that shows us that actually there is a commitment to us as a business that you're applying to. So it's just kind of being mindful of that really. Professional attitude, so being able to act responsibly, being respectful, showing a positive approach to your work and others. Motivation and drive, want to do your best to keep improving, not giving up even when things get tough. Creativity, thinking of fun, new and different ways to come up with great ideas. The legal world, to a certain degree, all law firms kind of, we're all following the same legal frameworks and laws that every other law firm in England and Wales is following. So with that, it then comes down to kind of the culture and relationships and being able to sort of work with our clients creatively. They don't want a dry law firm. They want to know that if they see you trying to call them, it's not going to be a really sort of dreadful conversation. You want them to kind of be excited to speak to you, knowing that it's going to be an interesting conversation. You can apply the law to them in ways that maybe they didn't think of, and that in doing so will absolutely kind of build that trust and confidence within each other. And then, of course, initiative, be able to act and assess on situations independently without prompting. So being able to really think for yourself and kind of push yourself forward. So what we're going to do now is kind of show you sort of a real life example of kind of an application that we receive. So coming at this from a hiring manager position, the role is fast-paced and requires a lot of customer interaction. Now, you receive this response. So I wondered if anyone wanted to just put into the chat their thoughts on this kind of application. You're the hiring manager. What do you actually think of this? Does anyone want to have an attempt? What are you able to take away from this application or CV experience? I can't see any typing, so I'll just, oh, fantastic. So Raj just mentioned no skills or personality present. Exactly that. This is almost, it's almost an advert for the coffee shop, and so you've absolutely mentioned that they've got a strong commitment to the business. Absolutely, that is coming through, but ultimately there's very little that you can kind of really draw upon from this experience. Yes, they clearly love what they're doing. That's wonderful. That's a really positive thing. But if you're trying to kind of translate their experience into the role you're looking for, then actually there's not much there. And Mary Kate, you've absolutely nailed it. It demonstrates more about the owner's ability than the candidate. So this is a prime example of someone selling themselves short, really. And yeah, John Paul's mentioned the we. We want to understand what you have done, not what the others have done, as part of a team. What is your input? So all of this, all of your observations there are fantastic. So really, really well done. And I think it's important to see, because I've fallen into this trap many a times. It's difficult not to. You do need to be really mindful. And so one of the things I tend to do is when I was writing a CV or making an application, I'll give it to someone else and get them kind of say to them, can you just identify the skills that I'm using as part of my CV, part of my application? And if they're only drawing one or two, then actually I've got something wrong. I'm not selling myself as effectively as I should be. And that's a real kind of missed opportunity. So what I've done here is I've actually expanded slightly on this response, and reading this, hopefully you can start to really draw out kind of lots more kind of skill sets and experiences that the previous response didn't have. So firstly, my role was to ensure that every customer had a wonderful and unique experience. So already they're demonstrating I understand what I'm trying to achieve within my role. What is the goal of this coffee shop? That is to provide a wonderful and unique experience, making every customer feel like a VIP. So knowing they're the first person they would speak to, or a customer would speak to when ordering a hot morning drink, I'd always welcome them into the store with a smile, whilst doing my best to remember the names of repeat customers. So already they've identified that actually that kind of repeat customer side of things is valuable. They're given a personal touch, and just really highlighting that sort of friendly, professional approach they've had, and that's what you want from sort of a sort of business and experience like this. People go and grab drinks to relax, and that's what they're trying to create. Then they talk about some of the skills they use. So I utilize my communication skills to take large drink and food orders from a variety of customers, ranging from students, young parents to elderly couples. This also involved financial responsibility, as a lot of customers prefer cash, so I have to be very vigilant that I was correctly changed to deliver a professional experience. So, they've highlighted there they're using their communication skills. Well, why? Well, they need to take their drink and food orders and be able to understand what it is that the clients are looking for. They've identified the fact that they're speaking to a range of people, so already they're kind of demonstrating that they can read a room, and they then kind of move on to talk about the financial responsibility. And I know cash isn't as in use as maybe it has been previously, but if you ever have been in a situation where maybe you've been slightly shortchanged, it's not a nice feeling. And if you walk out a store and you think, actually, you know what, I'm missing £5 here, or they're just taken 50p off me, it might be quite a small amount, but the point is you don't feel comfortable, you feel like you've been ripped off, and in doing so you're not going to trust them again. And so such a simple thing, and let's be honest, most likely a mistake, can absolutely impact someone's experience and perspective of you and that business. And so they've really highlighted the importance of that financial responsibility. So they're not just saying this is a skill I've used, it's this is how I've used it and this is why I use it to deliver a professional experience. And then they go on to talk about the use of their initiative. So if you had any quiet moments, I would use my initiative and find jobs that could be done to keep the standard of the store high. So again, skill, initiative, to do what? Find jobs. What's the result? To keep the standard of the store high. So you can see as well, they're starting to kind of really building sort of the STAR technique with their delivery, and it helps them create a structured framework for them to really put themselves forward and deliver their best, and also helping in the kitchen when necessary to help prep for the busier times. Time management was key to ensure they were well prepared and could comfortably handle the busiest times as effectively as the slower times. So you can see this person is a team player. They are someone that is really keen to get involved. So again, one of the reasons why it's so important to understand not just what you're doing, but how you're doing it and how you're achieving success within that. So I hope that helps make sense and hopefully can make you feel a bit more confident in your own experiences and how to really bring that forward. Now, we get a lot of questions that people kind of say that, either you're still a student and in kind of your early years, and you haven't got any kind of legal or general work experience to be able to kind of draw upon. Or you might be in kind of a second career and looking to have a career change and you haven't got a legal work experience to draw upon. That's absolutely fine. As a law firm, we don't expect you to have legal work experience, and we specifically sort of tailor our application process so that there are no legal based questions. There might be some ideas around sort of legal ideas or principles, but we're not exactly expecting you to draw from direct experience. And for a lot of people, it can almost be sort of a self-perceived barrier to entry. But you can see at the bottom there, it's all about how you explain your experience and draw upon the key skills. And it's a very common worry and it's completely normal. It's it's like the phrase, it's a catch-22 situation. They want experience, we don't have any experience, so how can I get that experience to then get that on my CV and really help to kind of push yourself forward. But the things to be mindful of is everyone starts with no experience. So really think through to any kind of university projects, hobbies, even if it's just helping at home. We've had some wonderful experiences from parents when they're talking about being able to juggle the school run and all the competing priorities there. Clubs, sports, part-time work are all really, really valuable and all count. And the most important thing is, how you're able to explain what you've learned and the skills that you've used. Employers want to see that employees can navigate their way to success. And this is the really key thing to be able to achieve. So, as mentioned, there can be lots of different sort of opportunities. What's important is to know that there is no right path. Different opportunities suit different people. It's all about just taking those opportunities when you have them. But whether by having some form of experience, whether it's volunteering or part-time work, employers can see that you have a desire to work. And we have a lot of people that use selling sites like eBay and Vinted to demonstrate their business mindset, customer care, initiative, focus, and financial responsibility. So absolutely, any experience is good experience to be able to really draw upon. So we've mentioned kind of previously in that sort of application example, sort of the STAR technique. So really, really great way to kind of put forward your kind of thoughts, your experiences. But just before we kind of look into that, if you are getting to the point where you're making applications and sort of going to interview, it's really important to ensure that you are in a position to deliver to your best. So if you are someone that does need adjustments to allow you to really sort of thrive and put yourself forward as best as possible, please reach out to the employer. And it's a good litmus test, to be honest, because if you reach out and say, you know what, I struggle with dyslexia, I would appreciate a bit more kind of reading time for this task as part of this assessment, or maybe there might be some neurodivergences, in which case you might need just a bit more thinking time. That's absolutely fine. We're more than happy to support that and work with you to find a way to sort of give you the right platform. The problem is, if people don't tell us, we can't help you. And what really breaks my heart is having to tell a candidate they've not been successful, and then they come forward and say, yeah, I really struggled because, with my dyslexia, I couldn't read that research piece fast enough, or it's anything like that. And that's heartbreaking, because if they'd come to us beforehand, we could have helped them, we could have given them that time. And it's not about just giving people a free pass, it's about creating a level playing field for everyone that's coming through. So you should hopefully get a good response when you go to discuss your adjustments. But if you don't, actually, you deserve better than that. So if they're giving you a red flag, take it and run. There's a lot of law firms out there, and it's about finding the right place for you and your career, because you want to be a place where you can be seen, you can be heard, and will allow you to develop to be the best person that you can be. So really to be mindful of that. And especially when you are going through to interviews, especially, then yeah, please have those conversations with us or anyone else. But moving back to sort of the STAR technique, so I'm sure you've all heard of this, and it's just a great way to kind of deliver your responses. And it's what you'll find is, at first it might be a bit clunky in terms of trying to pull this together, but over time, with experience, it will all become so natural, and essentially you'll then begin sort of storytelling to a certain degree in terms of your delivery. And what I kind of recommend people do is observe those around you that captivate you. What is it they are doing? And you'll find that they're giving context to the information. They're providing the necessary information for you to think, that's really interesting. I appreciate how they've done that. Or, it's all about that kind of engagement in capturing you. So the STAR technique really allows you to do that and start to observe people and how they deliver, sort of be it TED Talks, whether it's in your friend groups, work environment, it all kind of follows the same kind of path, start, middle, end, conclusion kind of thing. So that's very much what the STAR technique does. And the great thing is, when I speak with a lot of the assessors, when they've identified that a candidate has used the STAR technique, they really appreciate the effort that's gone into that to be able to get their points across. So it works across any situation whatsoever, because it is good storytelling of your experience, and allows you to really fill in the gaps that might be there if you just delivered sort of a bog standard response. And I'm sure you're very much aware of this already, but just as a reminder, it's a situation, the context, describe the background and setting that has led to the situation, the task, what was the challenge you had to overcome, how did you do so, with the actions. So you'll start really then talking about these are the steps I took to overcome this situation, and then of course hopefully you then get the success you're looking for. That is your results. And again, even if it's just creating just on a piece of paper, just scribbling down just a bit of a timeline of a piece of work that you've done, an experience you've had, then hopefully you'll feel really confident in what you have to offer, and having those conversations with the assessor, with the interviewer. And it's going well when it feels like a conversation rather than sort of an interrogation. If you're in an interview and you just feel that you've got questions coming at you left, right, and center, and you're not able to kind of join up the dots in terms of why do they keep asking the same question over and over again, it's because you're not given enough context for them to be able to kind of draw a conclusion from. And that turns the conversation into what can feel like an interrogation. So that's why it's so important. And the more information that you put out for them, to a certain degree, you then control the conversation, because you're kind of given, through the STAR technique, you're given a lot of information, and it's that information they can kind of pick apart and take a look at. But the point is, because it's information that you've given, it's your safety zone. And that means then, if they want to dive a bit further into this bit of experience, fantastic, I'm more than happy to do that. If they want to talk about the results, no problem at all. I've delivered the start of it, and I'm more than happy to go into depth with it. So it's a really powerful thing that allows you to then kind of control the conversation and what's being kind of discussed at the interview. So really do be mindful of that as you go through. So I'm going to give you a bit of a scenario now, and this is based on a real world example that we have had through the process. So just very quickly, you're working at an animal sea life conservation project based in Barbados. Your primary role is working with young children to teach them marine awareness. You can't speak the local language. What problems might you encounter, and what skills might be used? So if people wanted to take just a moment to input anything into the chat just around their thoughts as to what they might do, we can then take a look at the actual response the candidate gave.
I wish we could play some music in the background for you, Keith.
Yeah.
The students are typing away.
That's absolutely fine.
Just be a little pause.
Fantastic, Raj. Incorrect translation leading to misunderstandings. So really highlighting the importance of the communication skills there and getting it right. Use sign language. Fantastic. That's a really, really interesting idea. And it's that creative kind of way and approach that can really kind of bridge that gap. And it's about you being able to bridge that gap to them. And that's the really key thing. Draw a picture. Wonderful. It's all these kind of creative methods that can really help to kind of bring people forward. Focus on other ways of communicating while learning the language, body language, drawings, adapting behaviour so it's appropriate for children. All of these are absolutely wonderful, and it's fantastic to see. Creativity, problem solving skills required to present the information to only young children, but people who don't understand you. Fantastic. You've all identified and kind of come up with some really useful scenarios there to help overcome that. So let's have a look at the response. And actually a lot of what you have sort of highlighted there is absolutely correct. So This is a response that we received that really helps to demonstrate that all experience is good experience. They've set the scenario in the first paragraph and highlighted the challenges of the role. The next paragraph talks us through what and how they overcome these challenges. They've identified the importance of tailoring speech to the audience, and they found fun and creative ways to engage with the children. So they've done really well to kind of draw their experience out and use, as mentioned in the chat, a variety of methods to kind of bridge that gap, and that's so valuable. Now, this is the cherry on the top, and where the real value comes in. So they ended it and concluded with, my communication skills and ability to understand my audience mean that I can determine an effective way to explain legal issues to different types of clients so they can comprehend the advice and its implications, ensuring they are satisfied with the service and able to make informed decisions. So what they've done there is they have joined the dots themselves between what they're doing and the role they're applying for, which in this case is a trainee solicitor. And that takes all of the guesswork out of the interviewer. So hopefully you can see there the importance of that kind of conclusion piece as well, to kind of join those dots and take away the hard work of the interviewer, and they also demonstrating they understand what is involved with the role that they are applying for. So I hope that has been useful for you to see as well, and kind of does give some good context to the process. That person as well did go on to actually receive a job offer from us, and she was very happy for us to use this example in this kind of situation. So yeah. And finally, just the last couple of slides, I wanted to kind of talk about kind of how our lawyers are involved with some of the work that we are doing. So I don't know if anyone's heard of the website called Little Law. It's a wonderful website that gives some great commercial awareness and understanding, and it's written in a way that is really digestible and makes a lot of sense, really. So littlelaw.co.uk is a wonderful site. They have loads of different case studies working with a variety of firms, and this is a piece that we did with them, which was essentially about how we were able to turn abandoned mines into a source of energy. But you'll be able to find this on the website, but just want to kind of talk about what it is that the lawyers actually did. So you can see there's various steps involved with the process, the land acquisition, making the contracts work, planning and approvals, funding and governance. So what do the juniors do? Their work helps to turn a huge, complicated deal into something that was more manageable on a day-to-day basis. So they'll be helping to prepare the supply agreements, support the drafting of the connection and supply agreements between the relevant companies. This involves preparing markups after negotiations, checking schedules, annexes, cross-references to the documents, ensuring they stay accurate and consistent before being circulated to parties involved, managing communication with the client and the other side. They assisted with communication between Carbon Homes, Vital Energy, and the wider project team, includes corresponding with the other side's lawyers, sharing updated drafts, and helping gather the information needed to process documents. And they keep a track of all the points which are agreed and which are still open, so ensuring that nothing was overlooked. And most importantly, they keep the process organized. The junior team members help keep everything organized by keeping track of documents, preparing notes before meetings, maintaining checklists, so the team always know what needs to be done before the documents could be signed. So just to give some insight into how these skills are actually used in a real world environment there. And then just finally, in terms of how to find work experience, one of the things that I really kind of encourage is working with your local citizens advice. It's all voluntary, so there's a commitment to kind of development for yourself and experience, but you are essentially delivering, I guess you're kind of signposting. You're delivering legal information, but you're signposting people to the right kind of areas of support. And with that, you have to develop your communication skills, your listening skills, your influencing skills, your negotiation skills, because you don't know who could be coming into your room at any given time. It might be a family of 4 that are about to face eviction, and they're really stressed. You need to understand the situation in order to help them gain emergency accommodation from the council, or it might be that you have someone who's come in and they've suffered harassment in the workplace, a very sensitive topic, and they're not being taken seriously by their employer. You need to work with them to understand what's happened and what steps they can take next. So, excuse me, if you do have a citizen's advice near you, a great way to get some experience. A lot of our trainees have coincidentally got citizens advice experience. It's not something we look for, but it's something that's absolutely encouraged. And then if you weren't aware already, there's a system called Forage, which is essentially sort of work-based simulations that are done online. They are recognized by employers. There's a huge variety of employers out there. There's a QR code that will take you to the website, and it's completely free of charge. You can do it in your own pace, but it gives you a certificate, and you're absolutely able to reference it on your applications. So it just helps to demonstrate that actually, you know what, I understand the work that might be involved with your company. I've had some experience, and I'm really keen to kind of get involved. So hopefully that can offer some insight there. And then just finally, it's just remembering your future doesn't start with a job. It starts with the curiosity, confidence in taking the opportunities when they appear. Seize the opportunity when it comes, make the most of things, and keep challenging yourself to be the best that you can be. And that will allow you to really open up some incredible doors and really fulfill your potential. So happy to open up to any questions now, and if anyone has any other queries, you're very welcome to email us directly at early.careers@wbd-uk.com, or of course, please mention, please email the Open University team, and they can come forward with any questions that they may have. So I will stop sharing my screen. Apologies, appreciate I've gone a few minutes over the initial sort of question time slot, but very happy to answer as many questions as I can.
Thank you so much, Keith. That was absolutely wonderful, and so much that has been shared today. So really appreciate it. So I'm just going to dive straight into the questions.
Yeah.
So there have been a few here in the Q&A. I quite like this one. So what do you think law students often overlook during their degree that could make a real difference to their future legal career? Huge question, but hopefully you have a couple of tips you can share.
No, absolutely. I think the most important thing is just get yourself involved with activities, because the skill sets you demonstrate by working with groups of people that you've never met before, yes, it can be uncomfortable, but we're going to be doing that in your everyday workplace all the time. So it's a great way to kind of build your confidence so that you can step into any room and feel comfortable with what you have to offer, and knowing that you can work with others. It also allows you to kind of overcome lots of different challenges and get various perspectives and have that open mindset, something that's so important when working with others. You're not going to be right about everything. That's okay. And actually, it's quite nice to have your ideas challenged so that you can either feel really confident in what you have to offer, or take in some outside perspective. And that's what we do when we're working with our teams. And so I think sometimes, of course, 100%, your academic side is really, really important. You want to get the best grades you can, but it's really important to supplement that with the extracurricular activities, whether it's being part of societies, volunteering, just anything that just has you engaging in sort of real life situations, I think is a really, really important thing there.
That's brilliant. We've one's just come in, which is also particularly interesting for OU students. Is there anything you particularly look for in older graduates or candidates who studied as mature students?
So I think the most important thing is just when we review people, we review you relative to your experience. And so if you've got a career elsewhere, we want you to be able to kind of talk about that and bring those skill sets through. Essentially, you need to do the translating and joining the dots for us. So as an example, we have a lot of kind of journalists come through, teachers, things like that, and they're able to talk about, with journalism, it's the analytical side, it's the research, it's putting out information that is 100% correct, because that's what we've got to do for our clients. So they're able to talk about these types of skill sets and relay them into the working world. And with teachers, they're working with a variety of different students, so they've got to be able to manage and differentiate their communication across each one. Time management, incredibly important. If you don't have your study or your school lesson planned and ready, it's going to be absolute chaos and things can fall apart very quickly. There's the communication with the parents and managing expectations and things like that. And so it really is about reflecting on what it is that you've done, how you've done it, and how those skills kind of come forward, because that's where the value is, that's where your value is. So don't lose sight of that, don't sell yourself short, and any experience is really valuable experience.
Brilliant. I've got another one slightly different. A student is asking, how can I gain ability to articulate points and speak in a cogent way? For instance, when addressing the judge or defence, so court etiquette, because they're more or less saying that writing answers in the chat and through assessments, they feel that they're maybe not effectively gaining those skills. Is there anything that you could suggest? Thanks, Keith.
I think the best thing there is to just take yourself out of your comfort zone. And what you'll find is when you're working with people who you haven't met before, you're going to have to tailor your language to them and make sure that they're understanding you. So it's one of those things where it's difficult to kind of actually give yourself an exercise to do so, but just by experience of kind of pushing yourself out there, engaging with lots of people outside your normal sort of circle, will develop that confidence and be passionate about what you want to talk about and ensure that passion is coming across in the right way. People are understanding what it is that you're saying, and that in itself will allow you to then sort of demonstrate those sort of that articulation that you need to get your points across. And it's one of those things where actually the best thing you can do is just keep getting the experience of it, keep putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, and that will really help to kind of make you feel more confident in what you have to offer.
Okay, another question, although you'd probably be quite biased, working for Womble Bond Dickinson, but a student is asking, what are the best types of organisations or roles to gain high quality qualifying work experience that will genuinely develop the skills needed to become a strong solicitor?
Excellent. So, I mean, ultimately, there can be a whole variety of skill sets that can be useful. And just to sort of highlight that, one of our current trainees, before they entered the world of law, they're actually an undertaker. And the skills they developed there in terms of the importance of communication and being polite, being able to listen and speak to people in quite distressing situations, being able to convey their emotional intelligence really is really valuable. So in that regard, any experience is really positive as long as you're making the most of it. But in terms of sort of the qualifying work experience, that does need to be legal related. So, sort of paralegal, legal admin role. And I think the most important thing is just to kind of get yourself into that legal environment, if you can. And, we've actually had 2 trainees that have joined us from our facilities team. So they weren't actually even in a legal environment, but they were, or sort of legal work, but being inside the legal environment, seeing the work, when they're being asked to put together bundles, they'll ask the lawyer that's given it to them to give some context just for their own interest, and in doing so, they're able to kind of really understand what's happening in the business and what the clients are expecting, how we're delivering the work. And so I think, in terms of the qualifying work experience, there do need to be legal based roles, of course, but absolutely, just getting into sort of the legal business can be good. We've had trainees that have been part of the recruitment team, business development teams. So any experience is good experience as long as you can draw it out of yourself and have that self-awareness.
That's brilliant. I'm just conscious of time. It's now gone 1:30, so I'll start to wrap up here. So a huge thank you to Keith today for giving up his time and sharing his knowledge, personal stories and insight. We really do appreciate it. I certainly found it very interesting, and I'm sure our students all here today will have too. Thank you for amazing students for joining us today. Please do check out the Succeed tab on the Law Study home site for lots of helpful careers information, and also today's recording and those from the other events taking place across Law Employability Week. We will be uploading those recordings once they're ready. The final 2 events will take place this evening and tomorrow, and I think those will be shared in the chat box shortly. So this evening we have Career Insights from OU students and graduates, and then tomorrow we have Legal Careers in Government. You will receive an email from the law school in the next week with lots of helpful links, and you'll also be asked to provide some feedback regarding the sessions you've attended this week. We are really keen to receive your feedback, so we'd appreciate you responding to that. So huge thanks again to everyone for joining, and we hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Cheers. Bye.
Stop the recording.